And hello and welcome everyone to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. Happy Friday, everyone. TGIF. Happy Friday, Mark. Happy Friday, Stephen, who will be joining us very shortly. But how amazing it is that it is Friday. It's a beautiful, gorgeous day here in Cape Cod. So I'm hoping that wherever you are, wherever that is, whatever part of the world that you find yourself in, that you are enjoying just as beautiful of a day as I am. So today, and I'm waiting. I introduce Stephen, but he is right here with me, trying to help me with something else. But so he'll be joining us shortly. So today, I wanted to chat with everyone around a follow up to my personal story. This is something that I've been wanting to share. It's like a coming out of sorts. Telling people, you know, what had me be where I am today. What is my story, and how has my story become the source of inspiration for what I do and what I want.
I'm
And
here.
you know, so here you are. Well,
I'm
hello,
here.
Stephen.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. Just getting all the technical stuff done. So you're good. Your live
I
streams
am.
on your Facebook page. You're good.
Oh, I thought it was. It wasn't.
No.
Oh,
No, but it is now.
okay. So anyway, we're talking about before I go back, to my story. How are you? What's going on?
I am excellent. I have a lot of things going on. As I mentioned Wednesday on my show with the two of us, that there's a lot of, what's that phrase? Irons in the fire, I think.
I don't know.
And
I
some
would
great
always
things.
I would screw that up.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially yeah, we've already gone through that with I think it was a phrase with Mark. Anyway, things are amazing. They're moving forward, and I have some great stuff to share at some point. But right now, I still can't. But it's moving forward, and I am extremely happy.
And it's moving forward with velocity. So,
Yes,
even
yes,
though we can't give you a lot of details, what we can say is we're asking every single one of you to create that space so that all of this um, all happens, and we get to share it with you very soon. So, how about that?
exactly.
I was telling people about my last week's show. Well, last week was a repeat because Mark couldn't do the show, our producer, and the general manager Jim was not available, so we had to do a repeat. But it was perfect because it allowed us to run, my previous show, which was all about my personal story, and it's all about turning negative experiences into positive change. And I have been on this journey of sharing my personal story and really being becoming transparent and coming out of sorts, with what it is that brought me here. What caused me to, what inspired me to live the life that I'm living today, where I am so dedicated to inspiring others out there to live their best life. And so we call it turning negative experiences into positive change because, my story was a pretty difficult story. And so for those of you who weren't listening, you sort of already know, that what happened. And but those of you who are listening today, so I'm gonna give you a brief summary. So um, I came to Boston at the age of 18. I was, I had a pretty, difficult childhood. I consider, I was what people would call a latchkey child, and but those experiences drove me to be someone who was assertive, who was goal driven, who was a goal getter, And I was an overachiever very early on. In fact, that drove me to, wanting to come to Boston right after high school and go to college in Boston. And I did that. I was very confident early on in my life. Um, but then when I was 18 and I was living in Boston, I discovered through my roommate, and there's a whole story to that, that I was adopted. So my life did a 180, and I was so disrupted by finding out that what I thought my life was nothing about what my life was. I'm adopted. And so how do one deal with that, right? And I'm 18, I'm in a foreign place. I don't know many people. I don't, English is my second language. How do I cope with that? And there's many ways that one can cope with that. Many of them negative, but there's also many positive, and that's what I discover along the way. So I use my traumatic experience to to be like almost like a springboard into my own intense personal growth, and I created a whole lot of opportunity, from that point forward. Now, it wasn't easy. It was actually quite difficult. And again, at the age of 18, you find yourself, not knowing, not really having a lot of tools to cope, except that because I was somebody who was sort of forced to grow up early on, I already had plenty of those tools in my tool bag. So that's where I left it off. Stephen, you live with me. We've been together for what, going into 28 years. What was it for you listening to my story? What, did you gain any new perspective?
Well, I think I always gain perspective. If I think if you told the story once a month, I would get new perspective because, from someone on this side that has been through this whole process with you, it's and for someone who's never experienced. I mean, first of all, I wasn't adopted, and secondly, had pretty much the complete opposite of a latchkey kid, and was I think I was still roller skating when I was like 21 years old in the neighborhood. I just didn't want to grow up, so it was completely the opposite. So but what really stood out a couple of weeks ago when you were just talking about your story and your personal story was like where you are now and just how I've watched you. And I've also seen that every single year, it's not like, okay, this was resolved a couple of years ago. Every single year, and I think it's every single moment of the day, you learn something new. And that's what's most impressive, is that you're still learning, and you're the first, when we have conversations, to be open and say that you just learned something, that you just realized something about yourself or realized something about your perspective on somebody else, all in reference to or related to your experience in life. And like anyone who hears the story, I had goose pimples listening to it, and it's just it is not only interesting, it's a very emotional, heart touching story.
Yeah, and if you're listening and you have had a similar experience, I welcome you to call 508-222-1320. For me, people also ask me, so why now? Like, why do you want to tell your story now? And the truth is, there's never a right time, right? The right time, it's never going to happen. So I've learned that, as a leader, as somebody committed to my craft, leaders don't wait for the decisive moments. Leaders are decisive in the moment. And I thought this is an opportunity for me to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And it's important to be transparent. I want to be somebody who is transparent because my story really is what has informed everything that I do. It's informed my grip methodology, get a grip. It's informed how I relate, how I listen to my clients, and how I listen to myself. It's, it really is my story, is the core, the foundation of who I am and what I do. So, I hope that in listening, you can find yourself in your own version of what it is that has gotten in your way. It doesn't, one thing that Stephen said to me, a couple of weeks ago when we we're talking about this, I don't share my story because I necessarily feel that my story is unique because I actually know that there's, most everyone is dealing with their own story, whatever that is. So in whatever that is for you, it's important and significant for you. I share my story because I want people to 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 kind of find themselves in their own story and find ways, use these tools to get themselves, unstuck if they're stuck, or if they're, for those of you who are listening, you say to yourself, oh my god, I'm grateful that I haven't had anything like that happen to me in my life. I think this is an opportunity for you to connect to being grateful, and embrace gratitude at every single level. And for those of you who have experienced trauma, whatever that trauma is, it's an opportunity to know and to hear that anything is possible, and that you can still live the life that you want, and that you can still inspire people to live their best life. You just have to step into a bigger gap, and we're going to talk about that. But I'm when we come back, we're about to take a break. When we come back, I'm sort of going to tell you a little more about, after I found out what happened, and give you a little more insight into Coach Elix's life, and we'll just take it from there. So we'll be right back. And hello and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elex. It is a gorgeous Friday afternoon here in Cape Cod, and I have with me the masterful and wonderful Stephen the Medium. So welcome, listen to all the listeners wherever you are. And today we are talking. This is part two of my conversation, taking negative experiences and turning it into positive change. And I'm sharing with all of you my experience of learning that I was adopted at the age of 18. Now I wanna go back because I talked about what brought me to be such an independent, driven person at a very early age. And again, I had no idea I was adopted. I lived my life not knowing anything about me being adopted, nothing. And but I lived a life. I fall under the category of being a latchkey child. A child that both my parents were working parents. I spent time on my own. I got home from school to an empty house. I had to learn to survive. I had to learn to grow up. I had to learn to just show up on my very own. And early on, a lot of the experiences that I had as a child led me to narratives, self narratives like I'm not good enough, I don't belong, I'm not smart enough, I'm less than. Those were the narratives that were running my life. Now, those narratives, right? Although you would listen to that and you say, wow, those are very self-limiting narratives, right? But what happened is those narratives, to some extent, help us, become, the people that we are today. In my case, for me, I was determined to prove that I wasn't that. I was determined to prove that I was indeed better than, not less than, that I was smarter than, not lacking smart, or that I belong, not that I didn't belong. So I became a very high achiever very early on. And I did things from, like I remember I think I was like 12 years old when I baked my very first professional cake. And I remember it was for a spelling bee contest in my school. That's who I was. When I graduated high school, there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to go to college, not just college. I was going to go to Emerson College and I was going to make it happen. I had no idea how, because my parents really, in reality, they didn't have the financial means to pay for my college, to pay for my education, my location here in Boston. But that was not something that was going to stop me, no matter what. So in the back of those narratives, what I didn't think I was, was a drive to prove that I was that and then some. But the problem with that is that no matter what I accomplish, it never seemed to be good enough, because it was always on top of, but I'm not that. But I'm not good enough still. But I still don't belong. But I'm still, something's missing. I'm still not like them, right? And so it was like if you can visualize the hamster in that little wheel, like I was going so fast, but I wasn't going anywhere because I was sort of stuck, except that I didn't know I was stuck. In my world, I was moving. And by the way, to anyone else's, from anyone else's viewpoint, I was rocking it. I can tell you, I know I have very close cousins that will tell me, oh my God, we looked up to you. You inspired us. I have friends who would say the same thing, but in my inner, world, inside of me, I wasn't any of that, and I was trying to keep pursuing to be something, to filling that gap, because no matter what I did, it didn't feel that I was doing anything. So imagine, right? That's what's in the background, right? In the out to the outside, I have it all together. In the inside, I'm missing. I'm just don't have anything together. And then boom, 18, I'm here. I'm by myself. I'm in a foreign place, and somehow I discover I'm adopted. So imagine what that looked like for me. That was it was an immediate point in my life where I felt validated, but not the good kind of validation, by the way. That was the kind of validation where it was immediate. Well, I knew it all along. That's why I didn't belong, because I never belonged to begin with. I wasn't even, a real family member. That's why I felt I wasn't loved, because, they probably didn't love me anyways, because I wasn't one of them. And they all knew it, but I didn't, right? That's why I wasn't smart enough. Well, of course I'm not smart enough. I'm not part of, I don't belong to this family. And I had no idea who my family was at the time, by the way. So it was, again, it's when you're 18, as mature and as independent and as driven as I was, that was a story, that was a point in my life where everything stopped. Everything came to a dead halt. And I really, that provided me the framework to beginning to dive deeper, so that I could clean the clutter, so that I could then create, a new a new journey, but not with that old stuff that I've been holding on to, but with a brand new lens, a blank slate, if you will. And the good thing about a blank slate is that it's exactly that. It was blank. There was nothing in it. And it provided me with the opportunity to reinvent who I was. Not who I thought I was, but who I really was. Because I said so. So, what are you, Stephen? What are you? What are you hear? What do you hear when you listen to me sharing the story again?
I hear you. Excuse me. I hear your journey, because again, I'm not someone that just hears it for the first time or has heard the story. I've lived it with you. So when you're just explaining that, it just brings me back to exactly those moments, that time period. The emotional roller coaster, up and down, and just like so much of And one day you wanted to reach and move forward with your biological family. The next day you weren't. You didn't. It just went on, and it was something that I feel privileged that I was just there to support.
Yeah. And if you're listening, how many of you have had similar, narratives, self-limiting stories about you? How many of you have thought of yourself as not good enough? How many of you have thought of yourself as not smart enough? How many of you thought that you didn't belong? How many of you thought that you weren't loved? And your story may be completely different than my story, but yet here you are, right? Holding on to that narrative. And that is where the opportunity lives. That's where the opportunity lies. That a narrative is a narrative. It's made up. We embrace the idea and we over the years we gained so much evidence that there's truth to our narrative, that then we begin to relate to that narrative as the fact, as what we are, except that that's not who we are. Like when you say you're not smart enough, it's impossible for you to go to a lab and get tested, and your blood work, it's not going to come back and, well, no, we have a dumb one here. That's not how it works. Those are just self-limiting thoughts, self-limiting ideas that we invent and then we hold on to. And over the years, we just keep gathering evidence to support whatever that is. And that is what can definitely become a roadblock, what definitely can become that lid on what's possible for you. And by the way, I deal and I've seen, like myself, plenty of very successful individuals. So this is not about, well, you must, in order for you to have a self-limiting narrative, you must not be successful. No, there's plenty of people who have plenty of everything, but those self-limiting narratives are the things that keep running their lives. So they're not fulfilled or satisfied, or something's missing, or they're stuck, or they reached a plateau in their career. So when we come back, I'm going to talk about how to get yourself unstuck, how to pay attention to what it is that's holding you, and how I got unstuck myself, and how you can turn that negative experience into actual positive change. So we'll be right back. And hello and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, with me, the magnificent Stephen, the medium, co-hosting and supporting me
Hey,
here
hey.
in life. Hi, Stephen.
Hello.
So, we're talking about turning negative experiences into positive change, and I'm sharing, my personal story with all of you, a story that I haven't really shared publicly with many, and so I said that my story is what has guided everything that I do. And so the question is how, right? How did I get there? Well, one of the, despite being a latchkey child, I did have an aunt who was like everything to me. She was like a mother figure to me, and I spent a lot of time as a young boy with her in her house, and she early on she sort of put me under her wing, and she took it upon herself to really groom me. And I remember, I mean, I had to be a young kid. I'm talking 7, 8 years old, perhaps even younger. And I remember her talking to me about life, about the ups and downs, and about embracing all of it, not just the ups, but also embracing the downs. And I remember, early on, she said to me, you know, what do you want people to know you for? And again, I'm a young boy, so I have no idea how to answer that. And and she took it upon herself to say, well, you could be known as somebody who makes contribution. You could be known as somebody who's a good friend, who you could be somebody who is good to people, or you could be some you could be known as somebody who is all of the opposite, right? Or you may not want to be known as anything. And so early on, I knew I wanted to be known as somebody who who others could look up to. Now, as a young boy, of course, you can't put words into that. But all I had in front of me was her, and I saw her as such a good person. So that was my role model. She was a good person. She was a humble person. She came from nothing, yet she was poor, by the way. Yet it felt like when I was with her, I had everything. I was rich. And I thought, oh my God, this is what I want to leave behind. So as I discover, I'm 18, my life does a 180, and now discover for the first time in my life I'm adopted. What do I do? I went back to that. That was the basics. I just went back to that. Who do I want to be known as? And who am I going to be in the face of this? How do I respond to this? And I just remember thinking to myself, if I called her Taiti, if I was her, how would I be responding? What would I be doing? What would I be saying? And how would I be dealing with this? And that's what created that opening, that background for me, and as I later on began to create my own methodology, grip, this 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 is where it all started. It all started with that conversation that I had with my aunt when I was, I don't know, 8 years old, which she reminded me. She asked me, who how do I want to be known as? Who do I want to be known as? And I never ever forgot that. So as I want to, I'm almost pausing here because if you're listening and you're confronted by your own life, by your own adversity, by whatever the circumstances are, that's the question that I would propose for you to think about. how who do you want to be known as? How do you want to be known as? What what do you want to leave behind, right? And allow that, and you may find, I don't know, right? But I would, even when you first say to yourself, I don't know, I would invite you to just sort of sit and be with it, because something will show up. Something will show up. And let that, whatever it is, let that be your guide. Let that be your compass to then create and to navigate whatever that situation is for you. Does that make sense, Stephen? What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. You know what I loved about what you said, I don't know, several minutes ago when you were explaining your story, was that how many people would feel like they're in the same place, yet their stories can be completely different. I just thought that was like in an aha moment. It's that we can all be feeling the same exact thing, that you explained, but just didn't follow your exact path. Maybe have a completely different path, but still in that place, which I just thought was which was really cool.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Stephen, because, recently, I'm rebranding myself. I'm working on my book. And, I'm looking, one of the questions that I get asked very often is, who is your customer? Who are you trying to inspire? Are you just trying to inspire a certain group of people? And when I think about that question, I actually, my answer to that is, I am looking to inspire anyone who wants to be inspired. So it doesn't matter if you are a highly successful executive, but you know that despite the success that you have right now, you know that you're not living your best life, because you know that, right? Maybe I can be a source of inspiration for that. And maybe the story can be a source of inspiration for that. On the other hand, if you're somebody who finds yourself stuck, who there's more, but you sort of like reach that point where you don't know how to break through, maybe the story can be a source of inspiration for you. And maybe I can inspire that. If you're somebody who is, have not been able to pull through, and you're still in that place where you can get beyond the break, beyond the trauma, maybe the story can be a source of inspiration for you as well. So, I think you're absolutely right, Stephen. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter where you are and in where you are in life at any given time. If you know for yourself that there is more, if you know that there is some self-limiting background that gets in your way, maybe this is a story that can be a source of inspiration for you. And that's my purpose. That's what I wake up in the morning, excited to do. I get excited. I want to inspire people to live their best life, because guess what? In the face of the most difficult thing for me, thinking I'm someone and then recognizing overnight that I wasn't that, I made that choice. I remember that conversation with my aunt. Who do I want to be known as? How do I want to be known as? And I just decided to get a grip, on my life. Make sense? Well,
Makes perfect sense.
I hope it's making sense.
Of course.
For you guys. So that's, that is, that's the essence. And I know, this is, there's so much more that I can give, and there's so much more that I can offer, but but there's a lot of details, and so I'm trying to just offer you little helpful nuggets along the way, so that you could take whatever it is that you feel may work for you, and and then just you know expand and take it from there, and expand, take it to that next level. So I think we're about close to taking a break, and so when we take a break, I'm gonna give you a few nuggets of things that you could do to grow from difficulty. So let's do that. Let's take a break, and when we come back, I think we have a call, and then we'll navigate the rest of the conversation. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. We are talking about how to take negative experiences into positive action, and we have a caller, so let's go with that.
Hello.
Hello, this is Coach Helix. Who's this?
Hi. This is somebody you know, but wanted to keep it anonymous. But I just
Okay.
want to call and say thank you so much for sharing your story. It's truly inspiring, and I do hope that someday I do get to live my best life as you were saying today. So I'm just thankful.
Well, you're very welcome. And even though I'm supposed to know who you are, I sort of don't know who you are. Maybe Stephen does, but thank you for calling. And listen, the only thing that I would offer you is the only correction in what you said is stop hoping and start living, right? So don't hope that someday you're gonna live your best life. Start living your best life today. So whatever
Thank
that
you.
looks like, it may be just taking one little step at a time.
Yeah,
But
a
if you
step at
step
a
into
time.
that right now, you'll see an immediately difference. What? Go ahead.
No, that's it.
Well,
I'm good.
well, that's awesome. Thank you for calling. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad
Thank
that you
you. Have
feel
a
that
nice
way.
day. Bye
Thank you,
bye.
thank you, thank you. That's wonderful. That's really wonderful to hear. So here's a couple of things. You know, how to grow from difficulty. So I want to give you a few nuggets that you can actually walk away with. The first thing is to notice what you gain. Like be be present to the lessons. Be present to what the breakdown, what the negative situation may have brought to you. One of them, some people say that they now know what really matters to them. Out of a negative experience there, they now understand this is my priority. And I no longer have to worry about things that were trivial for me in the past. Other people say that they have better relationships with friends, with family, with their children out of, a situation that may have been difficult or traumatic to experience. And a lot of people talk about an increased sense of spirituality. You know, when we are confronted with difficult things, we it's an opportunity to connect with spirit and have a deeper connection to our higher power, whatever that is for you. So again, number one nugget is just really notice what you've gained. Notice what are the lessons learned. Anything else you would add, Stephen?
No, I think you summarized it perfectly.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So the second thing, and this is really awesome, is make new values, yet keep the old values. Now, one thing I think is Stephen Joseph. He wrote the book "What Doesn't Kill Us: The New Psychology of Post-Traumatic Growth." Um, he uses a metaphor of the fracture vase to describe the idea of post-traumatic growth. And that think about this, right? So say you have a beautiful decorative vase in your living room and you just love it. It's the most beautiful vase you've imagined. You see, that's why you have it, and you place it in your living room so you can see it every day. And one day, someone accidentally knocks it off the shelf and it shatters into a million pieces. And you try to put it together. You try to glue every single part of that base together. But no matter what good of a job you do, it's never going to look precisely the same. And frankly, it's going to be vulnerable to cracking or breaking again if somebody walks by or touches it, or there's any sudden movement. And in our lives, how many of you get into that habit of gluing your base together? Something broke and you just try to put it back together exactly the way it was. And what that means is that you're clinging to that old belief that has been proven false and doesn't serve you. And it could be things like, I'll never be happy if I get divorced. So I'm just going to hold on to that relationship I have, even though it's been broken into a million pieces. A relationship must last for my entire life or else I'm a failure. How many of you hold on to that belief? If I do a great job, I'll work, it'll work, and I'll never be fired, right? And you hold on to that job that you don't like, that you hate, but you're so afraid that if you don't do a great job, you're gonna if you don't honor if you honor yourself, that is, you'll be fired. If I'm smart, I'll never fail. Like, that's a really old belief that is just not so. What is that? How do you define failure? Only losers are single. So let me find somebody, even though I may not love that person, but I need to find somebody. Or only losers start businesses that fail. That's so not true. I'd rather start something and take a chance at something, even if it fails. It's like playing baseball. There's all kinds of strikes, but the only way that you can hit a home run is you got to try, and that includes the possibility of us, getting a strike. So people who grow from trauma and loss don't cling to false and old stories. They don't jump all their prior beliefs either. So, we've all met people who have been hurt or even seriously wrong. And they have become cynical, jaded, convinced that the world is out to get them. That is not a growth mindset. And it's also not true. So you want to always keep that in mind. So if your base falls into a million pieces, don't hold on to the base, because it's never ever going to be the same. Any questions so far? Stephen, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Went on for a long. Okay, the last, not the last one. The next one is update your operating system of beliefs. So we often have stories of fairy tales wrap around our core beliefs. The core beliefs, what we value, what really matters to us. Growing from loss means incorporating them into new, more mature worldview. You may really believe in the possibility of real love, even recognizing that it doesn't always last forever. You may really value hard work and taking risk, and not admit that a risk might not pan out. And admit that a risk may not pan out. But trying is what really matters. Trying is what you really care about. You may want a partner who really values you, but you see that the one who doesn't isn't the right person for you. So again, you have to update your operating system of core values and belief, and notice whenever it is that you're holding to an old pattern, an old belief system, because it gets you off the hook. It gets you to avoid from being responsible. And then the last one is create positive moments. Psychologists talk about happiness as not being the absence of negative events, but also the presence of positive events. So when going through an incredibly difficult time, we may have to shove in positive moments intentionally, even on a schedule. They don't have to be huge, life-changing moments. They just have to be small things, like appreciating the sunset, appreciating what we have, being present, having gratitude for the little things, for the snowstorm, for the whiteness, for the sun that's shining today, for the little birds that show up at your door. So just be willing to create those positive moments. So those are things, those are little nuggets that can help any of us to go from, dealing from a negative experience into positive change. And for me, as we continue to have this conversation, I'll continue to share with you, like what happened, years later, when I met my birth family, and when I discovered that I had two beautiful sisters, and I got to meet them, and I got to meet my family. For me, by the way, one of the things when I think about the things that I've gained out of this situation is two beautiful sisters among many other siblings, a family that really just loves me, that were so happy to see me, to connect with me. I had no idea they existed, but the fact that as soon as I found them, their love seemed to be unconditional. That's priceless. That is something that, to be honest with you, it's beyond what I ever thought to be possible. So I hope today has been conversation that you found valuable, and that wherever you are, whatever your journey is, and whatever your experience has been, that you've been able to walk away with a little nugget that makes you smile, and that you can take with you, and that will help you create that life that you love. What do you think, Stephen?
I think it was a wonderful show.
Yeah. What did you get from listening to me?
Well, as I mentioned throughout this whole show, Elix, it's different levels of reliving this and remembering it, which sparks, those feelings that are kind of hidden or you forget about, and they pop up, which is amazing. It's just, I guess to answer that would be appreciation.
Yes, yes. Same here, by the way. Every time I tell the story, I'm most appreciative of everything that I have, and I'm really thankful. So, and then thank you for the caller who was brave to call, and share, her experience and the acknowledgement. I really got the acknowledgement, so I really thank you. So if you're not following me, find me on Instagram, Facebook at Coach Elex. My website is being rebuilt, so I'm gonna have an awesome website soon. I'm writing a book, so I'm gonna have a book this year, and it's gonna be about this story. And how can people find you, Stephen?
Stephen, the medium. I'm just everywhere. Just look out your window and in highlights everywhere.
Awesome. And for those, I suspect that I have some of my. I just this morning I was leading a seminar on how to embrace difficult conversations for for a group of professionals. So if they're listening, hey, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here, for supporting us. And with that said, we will be back next week. And as always, no matter what, get a grip and call Coach Helix if you need to. Bye, everyone.
Bye.